I think we're on. Welcome everybody to episode 5 of this humble little Zoomcast that we've been doing during lockdown. I'm Matt Grima, and today, by God, am I excited. I'm excited for two reasons. Number one, the calibre of the guest we've got on, but number two, this particular guest does not like the limelight. So I think we're going to have a bit of fun. It's Sarah Wood from the City of Port Phillip. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I'd love to say thanks for having me, but look, I am very privileged. Job well done. So great to be here.
Now, Sarah, the first 4 guests that have been on have done this without hesitation. They've absolutely taken the opportunity to jump on. You're the first and only person to say no when I reached out initially. This isn't something that's, that you normally do, and not something that you typically get involved in.
No, your persistence beat my resistance, but no, I'm happy to be here. My schedule, unfortunately, is not fully booked at the moment, so I have plenty of time for you, Matty. No worries.
Well, that's why I thought I'd get you just during this lockdown period before the world gets goes back to normality, and our business gets a little bit more crazy as we move to the back end of 2020. Says I think there's a lot of people within Marshall White, within the industry in general, that have got an incredibly high opinion of what you've done to date. I thought it'd be a nice opportunity, though, to go back to the beginning, where it all started, where you went to school, how you ended up becoming the top line estate agent at Marshall White in the City of Port Phillip that you are. Talk me through that journey.
The journey, I finished school almost 20 years ago. I went to a girls' school called Strathcona in Canterbury, and finished there. Went on to do a Bachelor of Business Marketing at Swinburne, which I completed about 4 years later. At the time, I was actually working in the airline industry. I was working at Virgin Blue, which is a brand I have an enormous amount of respect for, and really look back on my days very fondly there.
Yeah.
I was ground crew, so essentially, as you can imagine, responsible for anything happening on the ground. And being in my early 20s, it was actually just a really good job, and in the sense of just character building, probably more than anything.
Sure.
I think I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment, because I think people are at their worst when they're getting ready to take the family on a family holiday, or potentially selling their family home. It's often when people are at their worst. So it was a really good job in the sense that I was there for about 3 or 4 years, and met a lot of variety of people, and both colleagues and passengers, and just the environment was unbelievable. So I was there for about 4 years. I spent predominantly a large sort of 12 months of that time in a training role, which I really enjoyed. Started to sort of think about the next step, and that was potentially moving up to Brisbane, which is where Virgin Blue was at the time. And I just basically thought at the last minute that wasn't something I wanted to do. I was very much a Melbourne girl and always will be. And so it was sort of in this little bit of a holding pattern, thinking I'd done a business degree, which felt a little bit like an arts degree, and wasn't sure exactly which direction that would take. And then sort of wondering whether or not I do a postgrad, etc. And someone said to me over a drink, would you consider real estate? And I know that happens a lot with people. So I gave it a shot. I started my career back in 2008 at a humble brand called Jealous Craig in Hawthorn. I did 12 months of property management. That was always the intention, to stay there. I didn't have this sort of goal to get into sales. I did 12 months there, and then the director of the Clifton Hill office actually approached me and said, would you be interested in coming and working as my PA? So I did that and worked at Jealous Craig, now known as Inner North. So worked in anywhere from sort of Clifton Hill, Brunswick, Northcote, Elphington, Fitzroy, and it was a really great market. Did about 4 years there. Then actually did a very short stint with one of the guys who was leaving to go to Colin Sims, so I agreed to go there and help him set up. And I always sort of felt it was a bit of an in to get into Marshall White eventually. Home was Port Melbourne at the time, and basically the first, I think I lasted maybe not even 6 months at Colin Sims. Met at the time Colin Sims and Marshall White were sort of all in one.
Yep.
And I think it was the first event we had from a Christmas party perspective, and met the guys and never looked back. I think I was over there within a week, and yeah, it's great. That was in 2013, and I've been there ever since, and never looked back.
Well done. Well done. You talk about, geez, the heightened emotion of the airline industry and the heightened emotion of what we do day to day, being selling someone's biggest asset or one of their largest assets, and by the same token, someone purchasing what is likely to be their biggest asset. What are some of the skills or traits that you feel have carried over in both industries?
It's funny. I think there's so many things that are similar in so many facets of business, and even just as something as dealing with the challenging and changing environment that it always was. You know, sometimes, you'd start your shift at 4:30 a.m. and you'd be dealing with the businessmen that always thought they were better than you, and dealing with delayed flights, and then you'd be dealing with some of the drunks that were flying back to Fremantle on a Sunday afternoon, and I think really it was about negotiation and reading people. Sometimes, and particularly towards the end of my time at Virgin, being a trainee, almost in certainly a senior role or a supervisor role, in the sense that if stuff got messy, you were called into it, and often I'd see staff dealing with, a passenger that was just beside themselves in this huge environment of people, and you could just see it had got to a point where it was just beyond control of trying to pull everyone back. And it's just all about just body language and communicating with people and making them feel comfortable and making sure that they're on your side. And I really learnt a lot in that. You had to be thick-skinned to deal with a lot of the stuff. And I look back sometimes and I think I can't believe I actually did it. But at the same time, I learnt so much from it. I think I was very, very shy when I was probably finishing school. And I came out of my role at Virgin and I loved it. It's some of the best years of my life. So, yeah, it was just a good all-round experience. Yeah.
Well done. The skills that it takes to do what you do, and I think, Sarah, a lot of people that have met you or have worked with you would compliment your reading of the place. He's somebody who can quickly understand or ascertain what the situation is and how best to move forward from there. And it sounds as though that might have been the case in both industries.
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually. When I finished my Bachelor of Business, something that was playing around in my mind, and even when I was at high school, was that I actually wanted to get into social work. And people laugh at me that the fact that, here I was wanting to do social work, and then I ended up falling into real estate. And, even to this day, it's something that in another life I would have loved to have done that sort of work. And, it's interesting that, people laugh, particularly my family, and say you couldn't be talking about two completely different industries. And but at the same time, I think if you really peel back the layers, real estate, yes, you can be extremely successful, and the financials that come with that is amazing. However, ultimately in anything, it's what we do is moving someone from a situation that they're in to another situation, and just guiding them through that. So moving someone from A to B and helping them and making the situation easier for them. So, I'm not here to say that they're the same, but I think that you can still enjoy different parts of the business from, and it's, as I said, it's something that I still would have loved to have done. And, hopefully I think that's what comes across in the way I do real estate, is that it is ultimately about helping people. Yeah,
no, I think it does. We're locked down. People have approached this lockdown period from a real estate perspective, particularly as agents, in a variety of ways. You've got the phone crusher that just needs to be on the phone, connecting, talking to people. I've spoken to other people that have seen it. Marcus used the phrase a forced sabbatical, which I liked. I like that turn of phrase. How have you been during lockdown, personally and professionally? What have you been up to, and how have you taken it all in?
I think there's a great deal of emotions, particularly in the first week or two. I think it was just getting your head around what the reality of the situation that we're in. I remember hearing about it just days before, thinking this is just unbelievable, and the word of the minute is unprecedented. So I think what have I been doing? I've actually enjoyed it, to be honest. I think initially, I'd sort of planned that the first 3 weeks was certainly going to be trying to relax a little bit, not feel too guilty about not working around the clock by any means, try and use it as a holiday, because I don't think any of us have really switched off much at all this year. I heard someone say the other day it was very probably a reactive as opposed to being proactive in the sense of the work that I was doing.
Yep.
But no, still the phone's been ringing a little bit, and still, trying to list a couple of properties. I fortunately didn't have a lot on the market going into this. So what have I been doing? It's actually amazing how much the days do pass by. You do wake up and think, what am I going to do? But people are very much wanting to talk at the moment, and conversations really aren't much less than 40 or 50 minutes. And, suddenly you talk to 3 or 4 people and get outside to do some exercise, and suddenly it's 4 o'clock. So what have I been doing? I've actually been running, which I'm not much of a runner. In the month of August, I decided that started running and thought I'd get back into it with 5K runs. And anyway, I ended up deciding that I was going to do at least 20 of them, which would mean I'd run 100K in August. So that was something I did. And I know a lot of people would laugh at that and think that that's all, it's not much. But it was something that I enjoyed doing. And I really thought there was no excuse to get out for 30 minutes or just under each day or morning was worth it. So it was just about trying to improve my fitness and come out of this feeling better as opposed to feeling worse. So look, I think, certainly the last couple of days and next week we'll be just trying to have some sort of framework with what the next couple of weeks and months are going to look like, and just work out who's looking to go to market pretty quickly. But no, look, overall, I think I've really enjoyed it. I'm fortunate in some ways that I don't have children to look after. I really feel for people in that sense. I think it'd be, a lot of pressure cooker environments. But overall, I'm feeling really good. I feel relaxed and sort of ready to hit the ground running. You
miss your workmates, Sarah. There's no doubt about that. You miss the office and seeing us and all of us in the office on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not true, Sarah. That's a lie.
I'm a shocking liar, aren't I?
Some people, I've spoken to most of the guys in our office, just checking in and saying, how are you going? There's a guy like a Nick Who, for example, superstar at what he does, and Nick is missing the office. You can tell he needs to be at his desk at the cockpit, so to speak, making however many phone calls and connections that he does on a weekly basis, because he feels comfortable in that space. And then there's, say, our mate, Kane Lanyon, who would much be better off, I think, doing his own thing in his home environment, and maybe not getting swept up in, nearly knocked the mic over, not getting swept up in the office stuff. So everyone's a little bit different, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably more like Nick Who than Kane in that regard, but somewhere in the middle is fine for me. And look, I'm just looking forward to getting back and doing business again with your colleagues. I think this year's been, I almost feel like we're all just freelance agents that are just working independently. You're going to appraisals on your own and you're doing one-on-one inspections. And, I think something that I love about my job is that with every listing, you're always working with someone, not always different, but just the diversity of our office is great in that aspect. So I think I'm looking forward to some normality whenever that is coming back and us working together.
Good on you. Yeah, me too. Sarah, as I said, you've been a phenomenal agent for a long period of time, but I reckon there was a point, I'm a mate of yours, a friend of yours, we've done a lot of deals together, and I've sort of seen your journey through the ranks, if you like. 2019 for mine was the year that Sarah Wood and her business went to the next level. I think that was well and truly recognised within the company. Won every bloody award that there was. They were giving out. Some awards I've never heard of, Woody, to be honest. But yeah, you knocked them dead. There are a lot of agents out there that have been going just okay year to year to year. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I'm sure you'll share some of it now, there's no doubt in my mind you went to the next level. What was the catalyst, or what was some of the things that you did or implemented that you can safely say attributed to your success?
Thank you. It's funny, I did get asked this question quite a bit last year, and I think the reality is I felt like one of those agents for many, many years. I really did. I genuinely felt that, I'd been at Marshall White for 5 years and I wasn't really breaking through. And I suppose, in my defence, I was always happy to probably play somewhat of the bridesmaid's role as opposed to being the bride. I didn't need to be someone that needed to thrive to be the best. And I always enjoyed working with some of the more senior guys in the office, you know, the likes of Kane and Ollie, and I enjoyed that. And I think, you know, mindset, which is, you know, a word that's thrown around a lot in our industry, it probably was my mindset. I was always thought of myself as probably being not an assistant, but being more assisting in a lot of the bigger campaigns. But I don't know what it was, and I didn't have a moment where it just happened for me. I think to reassure people, it doesn't just happen, and you know, people often say it can take 5 years, and with me it was just, you know, and I'm not here to say that I'm perfect in every way, because I'm far from it, but I think if you genuinely do the right thing by people and you care for your clients, it just naturally starts to come back after 5 years. And you know, it was really interesting, and I got a huge amount of support from people at Marshall White, you know, as you always do. But going into last year, I started, my first listing was a listing in Middle Park, which ended up transacting for just under 7 million before auction, and it was a landmark listing. It was one of the most expensive homes traded last year, and you know, that was from a client that I'd sold to 2 or 3 years earlier. They bought an apartment from me for just over 3 million. And I just kept in touch. And I remember them saying, you know, they were a very loyal client of one of our competitors. And I just remember them saying, we just liked the way you made us feel. And, you know, and I was relatively inexperienced at that time. So I think don't underestimate just sometimes being easy to, you know, do business with, and I kept in touch with them, and sure enough, when that listing came up, you know, I got it uncompeted, and I think it really gave me this feeling of, you know, suddenly I didn't have to be the person that sort of wasn't in the limelight. And I remember even walking down the street and people would say to me, you know, that's amazing. Is that your listing? Sort of like, yeah, actually it is, you know.
I do this stuff, you know, like I'm involved.
Yeah, and it was funny, and it was just, you know, and it wasn't that I had a huge amount of success off that particular listing. It was just that suddenly, you know, the next week I was selling for someone else that I'd sold for 5 years earlier. And, you know, and I just started to get referrals and repeat business. And it was just a good year. You know, I felt good about it. You know, I had clients that were very loyal. And I also just probably got out of my comfort zone a little bit last year. To say a little would be an understatement. But you know, Paul Gregory, who's our general manager in the sense of Brighton and Albert Park, and he basically just pulled me out of you know, and said, you know, essentially that you're better than what you're doing, and you know, signed me up to do things that I didn't really necessarily wanted to do, and I did it, and, like the Novice Auctioneer competition. So
into that.
I thought you might. So
well, that is, talk about outside of your comfort zone. I had to read the sheet again when I saw your name on it as a participant in the auctioneer program that's Phil DeFagley and Marshall White have run for a number of years. Geez, I was, as I said, as a mate of yours, I was proud to see you have the courage to do it, because it's not easy. Talk me through that process. You are essentially learning how to become a fully fledged auctioneer. And then at the end of the program, if I'm not mistaken, you stand up in front of your entire company, your peers, and that's the hardest auction you'll ever call, as most people say. And you stand up and you call a mock auction, if you like. However, you don't know who's bidding, what bid level is coming in. It's a traumatic experience. How did you go?
Traumatic would be a very good way to put it. It's by far the scariest thing I've ever done in my life and career. I think I'd rather jump out of a plane, but essentially it was an idea that was thrown around the office, and I jokingly each year have just absolutely categorically denied it any invitation to partake. And on this particular year last year, a few of the Albert Park colleagues were doing it, and I just thought, well, look, if they're giving it a crack, maybe if it's going to be any year, it should be this year. And I sort of went to the orientation night, as you do, and thought, well, I'll take the pamphlet and get out of there pretty quickly.
I tick the box, I'm done.
I didn't realise that on that night it was really going to be a case of yeah, no, it's make or break. Are you win or out? And basically everyone in the room committed. And I thought, well, geez, I better just look. I'll give it a crack. I might learn something. I'd done my license estate agent's course earlier in that year, and I thought, look, I'll just do it. That way I can say that I've done it all in the sense of the training, and I thought, well, it's okay. There's 12, 15 people here, and I'm not going to make the final, so I'll just learn what I can and basically bow out. So the problem was with last year, a lot of people actually ended up leaving the industry or just decided that the course was probably not for them, and ended up coming down to, I think we had 6 people in the end. So I was through to the final by default.
That's your Stephen Bradbury moment.
It absolutely was. I can't tell you how much it was. So here I was, I think every person obviously got through to the finals. And as you know, the finals are at Kooyong. And it's not just in front of 100 of anyone. It's 100 of some of the best agents and auctioneers in that room. So I got up there, and for someone who is relatively relaxed about most things, to get up there, I almost don't remember it. To get up there and do an auction, and I cringe. I've watched it back once, and I genuinely felt sick watching it. But I've done it, and I must say the best thing about COVID is the fact that public auctions have been outlawed, and I have absolutely no pressure to do an auction. And when the time comes around again, I think I'll just say that my days have passed, and I've lost my opening. So I never did it with the intention to be an auctioneer, but it was good fun. I learned something, and yeah, on to the next one.
You talk about out of your comfort zone, Sarah, and I think 2019 was a year where you slowly started to build some of the self-confidence that matched the performance that you were putting out there week in, week out. And sometimes it takes a character to come up to you and give you a bit of a shake and say, hey, you're better than this, or we think you've got some real potential, and we know that your clients love you and what you do, and it's time to lift. And you took it with both hands, and you had an incredible 2019 for sure. And may that success continue. I've no doubt that it will. What can we talk day-to-day real estate at the moment? I don't want to get to News Limited or Fairfax here, but you're certainly somebody that's in the know. You've got a lot of clients. You're building a serious war chest, if you like, for the end of the year with prospective listings coming on. I know you deal closely with your top 10 or 20 buyers. That's something you've been very good at for a long time. Talk to me about what you're thinking, feeling, seeing, expecting as we come out of this lockdown period towards the end of 2020 and maybe even leading into 2021.
Sure. I think the truth of the matter is I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen. I sense it's going to be a very, very busy last quarter. And I actually think the market, particularly in the area that I'm fortunate enough to live and work in, is going to hold up remarkably well. And I've been saying that to a lot of clients. I think that the market is doing so much better than what people would probably assume it is. We've got a huge amount of buyers out there and just not enough supply in the market. So I think the real test is going to be once we start to see an influx of properties come onto the market. But I think property prices are going to, I've been saying to clients that if you're planning on selling in the next 12 months, I'd be getting on with it now. I don't think the market's going to get better next year. That's my feeling. So I think it will be, I think the hardest thing for an agent at the moment is trying to get a vendor or a prospective vendor to commit to selling now. And I can understand that concern. But as I say to them, if you're planning on doing something, do it sooner rather than later. So that's my feeling. I think potentially we could see the worst of it probably mid next year. That's the speculation. But every time we assume these things or think they're going to happen, they don't. So I sound a little bit like a broken record when I say this, but I really genuinely believe it. If you're going to move and you want to go on to the next stage, make a decision based on your lifestyle and what works for you, as opposed to the distraction and the noise of what the market's doing in October or February or June next year. Just get on with your lives.
And there's markets within markets, aren't there? So often you see an article come out in a paper or a video or a news bulletin on the TV that's blanketing real estate across Victoria or even Australia sometimes, and often it can prove inaccurate based upon i.e. the calibre of real estate that you personally might handle, particularly in, say, the Albert Parks, Middle Parks, St Kilda Wests, Port Melbourne, South Melbournes of the world, your Elwood, that's your bread and butter. There might be a different level of demand. There might be an inferior level of quality stock or supply available, and that will change how the market works in that particular part of the world. So there's probably markets within markets that people clearly have to be more aware of.
Very much. And I even heard one of the colleagues on a call the other day talk about the 80-20 rule, and I think that's probably happens in any market, whether it's good or bad. 80% of properties will still continue to sell well, but there will always be 20% that will sit there and they'll be compromised and they'll be overpriced. And I think as long as everyone's going in with real expectations and realistic expectations, I should say, is the key to it. But you're always going to have listings that sit there, and I've got clients that say, I'm reluctant to sell because that's been on the market for a long time. But as you say, I think every property has to be taken on its own merits. But overall, I think the market is good, and I think it's a fair market. So I think it's a good time for buyers to jump in, and as well as vendors.
Yeah, well done. Well done. Sarah, you much like the auctioneer program, you've now ticked the box of being a special guest on ZOOMCAST. We're rapidly growing. No, that's not true. But Sarah, where can people find you if they want to sell a piece of real estate, buy a piece of real estate, or even pick your brain about your rise through the ranks and some of the success you've had? Where's the best place to find you?
They are always welcome to pick up the phone and call me. I would say my Instagram and social media, but that is certainly a goal.
It's in need of some help, says. You need to get more active on that.
I think for the next six months, that is absolutely a goal of mine, to pick up my social media game. So I think the phone is the best thing for now. Well done.
Well done. Now, people have enjoyed the visual content that we've put out there, and certainly it's been all my guests, not me, I can tell you. But we're on. We've got the podcast version available on Spotify and iTunes. If you punch in ZOOMCAST, you'll be able to find us. And if you go for a walk to get the morning coffee during lockdown, then you might enjoy some of the content in the podcast format, as opposed to having to sit in front of a screen for 30 or 40 minutes and look at my mug. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I generally appreciate your time coming on, and no doubt we'll catch up again soon.
Easy. Thanks, Matty. See you.
Thanks, Sarah.